Hello there, friends, and welcome to our first episode of Kingdom Death Simulator. Hello, everybody. I am Simodian, and we are going to be enjoying one of my favorite games, Kingdom Death. So, before we get into this, a little bit of what that means. Around 15 years ago, a man by the name of Adam Poots started off a miniature line, dark fantasy horror oriented, called Kingdom Death. This became somewhat successful, and he started brainstorming a game to play with said miniatures. There's a lot that could be said about it. It draws a lot of very direct inspiration from the old Warhammer Quest game. It is a campaign-focused boss battler slash settlement simulator. The way many people would describe it is it's Monster Hunter meets Dark Souls, and that is mostly fair. A significant portion of the game is going out, finding giant monsters, slaying them, and bringing them back home, and making cool armor out of their parts. The Dark Souls comes largely from the aesthetic, very dark fantasy. Both Miyazaki of From Software fame and Adam Poots are huge fans of the Berserk manga, and those influences are seen throughout all of their creations. From the gameplay side, people say Dark Souls because it's very difficult. But realistically, for me, a better way to say it is it's like Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon is a phenomenally unfair game. None of your characters are going to make it through that game unscathed, either physically or psychologically, but you have to press on, do your best, continue building up to eventually succeed. So from a gameplay side, that's kind of what we're looking at. Before we dive into the game, I do want to give a bit of a content warning. We even have a fun little, not fun, that's not a good thing. We even have a chat command to really discuss that. So this game has very dark tones. There are some sexual imagery. You might see some scantily clad people. There is a non-zero number of penises in the rulebook. There is a lot of violence. People will die. People will get dismembered. There is going to be gore involved, not graphically, but descriptively. Some of the artwork might have elements of that, as well as depictions of mental trauma are all part of this game. So perfectly understandable if any of that is too much for you. I don't take it personally, but that is what we're doing here. Just want to make sure everybody is aware. So this Kingdom Death monster game is kind of infamous. The first Kickstarter came out, I want to say 2015, 2016, and they're still working on it. It did raise a lot of money, and it is a cautionary tale of stretch goals. They met a lot of stretch goals and are still working on filling them. They had a huge major expansion finally come out last year. Dealt with stuff like international shipping during COVID times, potentially having other hurdles upcoming with regards to international shipping. It is a very expansive game. It is gigantic. It has a ton of models. It is also fairly expensive. I own a significant portion of the line, mostly gotten through sales and whatnot, but anybody who does look at the website and go, this game looks really cool, most of them will see the price tag and immediately turn around. And that's fine. It's a boutique premium offering. Whether it is worth that money or not is up to you. That said, even if you wanted to buy it, you can't right now. They finished off their last print run and are currently working on getting it back in stock. But what's nice about this is a couple years ago on Black Friday, they launched the simulator. So let's take a journey on into that simulator. So this is a product that is still being heavily worked on. There's a small team of developers who are continuing to add things to it. It is mostly content complete. All of the major expansions that are available in physical form are available in the simulator, with the exception of what I talked about, the huge one that came out last year, the Gambler's Chest. Not only is it a lot of content, it fundamentally changes the way you play the game in a lot of ways. So implementing that into the simulator is still a goal they are working on. We've got a cool house here. There's lots of rooms that don't do anything. While I say it is largely content complete, feature complete, I believe their current timeline has them at around 15 to 20% complete. They want to add in things like model customization, painting, all kinds of fun stuff. None of that is in the game as of yet. But what we can do is we can play the game in a fairly complete way. So there's a lot of rooms here. None of them do anything just yet, except for our game room. So I have the table set up already for what we're going to see. We have our model cabinet over here. We will not be using all of these models just yet. Again, I have all of the expansions. So these are all the models. We're only going to be using essentially one from each shelf as we're playing through our first campaign. But there are also, I have all the stuff we're not using boxed up, so that's why the rulebook shelf is currently largely empty. So let's take a seat at the table. So this game has a very nice prologue that serves as a tutorial. I'm not going to be reading through all of the rules in the book because I have a good understanding of how they work. But if at any point there are any questions, feel free to ask. When it comes to the game itself, I am not an expert. I am actually overall somewhat of a novice. I have a general understanding of how a lot of things work, but very specific like meta and tactics, we're going to learn together. So to start off with, we are going to be playing the default campaign in the base game. It is known as People of the Lantern. We are not going to be using any expansion content. We're going to play through it vanilla. I fully expect we will not complete it. It is very difficult. Losing is honestly the most common outcome. As we play through, we can start on future playthroughs. We can add in other expansions, add in different monsters to fight, add in some other features, as well as there are 2 other campaigns already ready to go in the game. People of the Stars, People of the Sun. We will be tackling those at some point, but not just yet. So without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome to our game. So introduction, how to play, build your miniatures, you're using dice, lots of stuff going on. The rotation with the 3 main phases. The hunt phase, this is where we are going out into the wild to track down our quarry. We will not be doing this in the first chapter. The first chapter starts off in the second phase, known as the Showdown, which is where you fight the monster. And then over to the settlement, which is where you bring back the resources you've gained from the other 2 phases, build up your settlement, get a little stronger, and then start that whole cycle over again. People of the Lantern lasts for 30 of these rounds. We'll see how many of them we can get through. But let's get into our story. Once upon a time, there was a place of carved stone faces. A man with a lantern lay sleeping a dreamless sleep. The man knew nothing. One day, the man woke up. He rubbed the dried ink, caked over his eyes, and opened them. Around him, he saw other people stirring, and beyond, a horizon of unbroken darkness. A woman approached the man with the lantern. Her soft hand reached out to him. They had no words. They were a mystery to each other. Suddenly, a monster emerged from the darkness, its eyes wild with hunger. It attacked. The people were no match for the monster. It tore their flesh and crushed their bones between its teeth. Some it devoured whole. Overcome with terror and grief, the man with the lantern collapsed to the ground. Cold stone noses pushed into his side. There was no escape. But the man did not want to die. Desperately grasping at the cold stone faces, he felt a crack and tore at it with all his might. A piece of stone came free. It was sharp and deadly. The man with the lantern scrambled to his feet. His weapon clenched in his fist. He took a deep breath and roared into the darkness. Somewhere in the place of stone faces, nameless men and women stand together. They have nothing but a need to survive and a lantern to light their struggle. And here we are. So again, there is a number of things. The first story guiding us through the game. The first story picks up after the awakening of the survivors. Before they can take stock of their surroundings, the survivors must fight for their lives against a vicious white lion. The game is designed around 4 survivors to begin playing. If you have fewer than 4 players, some or all players should create more than 1 survivor, so 4 survivors are represented. So within the simulator, you can play multiplayer. Everybody needs their own key to the game. However, as a nice feature, only the host needs to have the expansions. I am not playing multiplayer. I will be controlling all 4 survivors on my own. So what that means, this is a somewhat complex game. There are a lot of rules to manage. I have 4 characters and 1 or more, sometimes monsters, to take control of. I will do my best to adhere to all the rules to the best of my ability. If I do miss something, I apologize, but that's kind of just the way it is. Even playing with 4 people, it can be a lot. So this teaches us how to set up the game, build your miniatures. I've spent far too long building miniatures. Create your survivors. So let's take a look at our survivors. This is a survivor's character sheet. They are fairly simple and straightforward at this time. I have named the survivors after the 4, quote, canon characters in the game, that being Alistair, Lucy, Urza, and Zachary. And there are a handful of things to note here. Just very quickly, survival. This is a resource we can spend. It essentially is the survivors tapping into their will to live and being able to perform incredible actions. The only action we currently have available is dodge. We will get to that as it's relevant. Movement, how many spaces you can move. Other stats, again, not relevant at this point. We will get to them as we can. We have insanity. Insanity in this game is a good thing. Insanity is essentially mental armor. You have to be a little crazy to survive in this world. Horrors are going to be presented to you, so a little bit of insanity is only going to be helpful. And then here we have the armor for our various body parts. We'll get into that in a little more detail later, as well as how damage works. We also have our starting character grids. This is one of the really cool things about this game. Every survivor can be equipped with up to 9 items. This grid will be very relevant as we progress farther into the game. Actually laying out your inventory in an efficient manner is very important to success. To start off with, we have a piece of cloth. This is our only armor. It gives us 1 armor point on our waist. And we have the founding stone. This is the piece of the face that survivor tore off in the prologue story. We'll get into a little more detail exactly how this works as we get there. Next, we also have to set up our monster. So monsters, the way they are handled in this game, are very cool. Essentially, you will never fight the same monster twice. That is because the situation that you'll find yourself in, and later ones on the hunt phase, you're not going to arrive in the same shape every time. But more importantly, the way these decks interact. Every creature has a deck of AI that determines the actions they will perform every turn. This is randomized, both in obviously shuffling, but in the cards that are within the deck itself from fight to fight. Additionally, we have hit locations where when we are attacking the monster will react to those attacks in different ways. So due to the number of cards and the random nature, no two fights are ever going to be quite the same. For the prologue, the first story, White Lion, there is a very specific way we set up their deck. They have these 8 cards with the claw on top. Additionally, for the hit location deck, there is a strange hand card that we will be placing on top of the hit location deck. So this is where the simulator is somewhat helpful. There is not a ton of automation that they have programmed in. They have a few beta features that they're working on. However, setup is one thing that they have managed to do. So all we have to do is come over here to our White Lion. We can right click on the lion, setup, Showdown, and we can set up the prologue. So the White Lion is ready to go. So those decks I talked about before are already set up here. All we have to do is get our survivors in the right spaces. So the book tells us exactly where we can set up those survivors. They are 3, 4, 5, 6, always going to be 6 spaces away from the lion, wherever we want them in that diamond. Now, the thing that we definitely want is for them all to be in the same general area, because if the lion comes this way, the survivors back here are not going to be having a good time for those first couple turns. So we're just going to generally set them up. Oh, this is new. So when you are setting up the hunt, this is a new feature they must have added. It has green squares for where you can set up your survivors. That's actually really cool. That was not here the last time I played the game. So we're just going to set them up in a general face-off formation. So let's take a little bit of time to talk about exactly the monster's stats. So if we come here to our basic action, we can flip, nope, there's Q, nope. What's the button? I have forgotten. F for flip, of course. So we get to take a look at the monster's stats. So, first story, it has a custom deck list, which we've already assembled. It has a movement of 6, which means it can move 6 spaces a turn. And it has a toughness of 6, which we will get to when that is relevant. How many hit points does the lion have? Doesn't look like it has any. So the way we defeat a white lion is by removing all of the AI cards from its deck. Every time we wound the lion, one of these AI cards will move into the wound stack. When all the AI cards are gone, he will have one thing left to do, his basic action. So once he's down to his basic action, once we wound him once more, the monster is defeated. So there is all kinds of stuff to keep track of. When it comes to the individual survivors and all of their stat tracking, I'm not going to be doing it in real time on their character sheets. Anything that is a permanent change, we will update. But as far as in combat, I'm going to be using an overlay to keep track of that stuff. Because it's a little annoying to have to keep coming in here and updating all their stats every time something happens. Just for flow of the game, hopefully this will end up being a little bit easier. One other thing to touch on. Let's go look at our box. There is this thing called the Monster Controller Token. So when you are playing, the Monster Controller Token passes from player to player. and whoever has the token, they're the one that gets to roll dice for the monster on that turn. Keeps everybody involved. Additionally, if the player with the monster controller token targets their character, that character will gain 1 insanity. Nice little bonus to encourage people to not play it safe when they're in charge of the monster. That said, I'm only one player. I can't pass it from to myself. One of the rules, supplemental rules of the game, is when you're playing solo, nobody gets to be the monster controller. But I think we are ready to kick it off. As with all fights, the monster goes first. It wouldn't be fair if the survivors got to go first. There's 4 of them. So, from a tactical standpoint, let's see what this means. So we already know what the first card here is. It's Claw. So, on these cards, we have a series of things to perform. This first box up here is choosing a target. And it will go through each of these in order until it has a successful target. So our first line here, closest threat facing in range. So what does that mean? A threat is anybody that is standing. All 4 of our survivors are standing. Facing. Facing means anybody that is in front of the monster. So this line and, well, mess that up a little bit, but this line and beyond. And then in range means that they are close enough for the monster to move and attack. Since everybody by default was set up 6 away from the monster, everybody's a valid target. So what we can do here is we have a fun little deck. What was the shuffle button? G, was it? Yeah, G. I've set up this deck to determine who our players are. For my purposes, I number each player starting at the top left, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Not going in the traditional clockwise motion, just because it's easier for me to think of them 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. So let's see. We have number 3, which is our friend here, Lucy. So another cool feature of the simulator. Let's actually unassign sheet, unassign survivor. So what we can do, whoops, if we pick up our character sheet and hover it over the character board, now these are connected. Similarly, if we pick up the character model and hover it over the character board, they are connected. It's a little silly now because everybody's named their canon names, but when we have additional characters with different names, this feature will be very helpful. So the monster has chosen Lucy as its target. So what does Claw do? We move and attack the target. So move, he has 6 movement, so he can move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he will stop there. The monster will always take the shortest route to its target. If there are other people along that route, that's not going to end terribly well for them. That said, like if it had been choosing Alistair, we could have it go here and face him that way. We also could have chosen to have it go here and face him that way. Same amount of spaces. That's up to the player to decide at that point. All right, speed 2. This is how many dice it's rolling on its attack. So it's going to be attacking twice. We can get our dice together here. Accuracy 2+. It's going to hit on 2 or higher. For those of you who have a basic understanding of statistics, that's bad for the survivors. So let's roll those dice. We get an 8 and a 6. So we have 2 hits. Each hit deals 1 damage. Well, if we look at our character sheet, where does it take our damage? Well, we grab our 2 hit, whoops. Always that wanting to left click, but no, we have to use a hotkey to pick them up. So this is what we roll to determine where we take damage. Each of these dice has one of the 5 hit locations: head, body, arms, legs, waist, with a second body for the other side. Logically, the body is where you're most likely to take a hit. So now we roll our dice. We see we're taking 1 to the body and 1 to the waist. I'm going to show that over here on the character sheet. So that's the wrong character sheet. So for Lucy, she has 1 armor on her waist, so the 1 damage will take that away. She does not have any armor on her body. So 1 to the body now means we check this light wound. So as you can see, every hit location has light and heavy wounds. Once you take your heavy wound, your character is knocked down for that turn. If you take additional damage after you have your heavy wound, then you get to roll on a table. And there are very few good results on that table. Notably, the head does not have a light wound location. So once you're out of armor, you're immediately in heavy territory. However, 1 damage to the waist, 1 damage to the body, that's nothing too serious for Lucy. She can handle that. And we will move on from there. The monster, having done everything on its card, the monster's turn is now complete. So this is where normally we would then start attacking the monster. But let's remember, specifically for the prologue, we already know what card is on top of the hit location deck. If we had been setting this up ourselves, we would have known what that card is, so I will just show it to everybody. It is the Strange Hand. So when you attack a monster, if that attack is successful, you draw a hit location, which then has its own set of rules. So looking at the Strange Hand, if we hit this location and we fail to wound, the monster gets to hit us back. That's bad. However, it has this lantern symbol. If we look at the dice, let's see if we can get one here. The lantern represents the 10, essentially a critical wound when we are trying to wound the monster. What the critical wound does, very specifically, cancels the reaction, so we don't have to worry about the failure, and has additional effects very frequently. Again, typically we would not be drawing this until after we've attacked, but for the prologue, this card is always on top. So we know that our first successful attack against the monster is going to draw this card. And this critical wound effect is pretty good. If we go back to our grids here, we can see the Founding Stone. How does that work? I don't know. The Founding Stone has a special ability. Spend Lightning Bolt, this is your action for the turn, to sling the stone from anywhere on the board. Archive this card, which means put it back in the box. It's now gone from the game. For 1 automatic hit that inflicts a critical wound. So this is one of those things for the prologue that the game kind of sets up for you. You know if you critically wound this, you're going to get a bonus. And you have an ability to immediately critically wound. So we will do that. Which of our survivors? I'm not going to pick Lucy, because Lucy's already taken a little bit of damage. Whoever gets this permanent bonus, we're going to want to make sure they live through the fight, and we don't want to do that on somebody who's already taken damage. So we're just going to draw another one of our random cards. Okay, it's a 1. So that's going to be Alistair. So Alistair is going to take his Founding Stone, and we're going to archive it, sends it back to the box. So Alistair is this one. And we're actually going to move him back a little bit, just for safety purposes. And he is going to sling his Founding Stone, which automatically hits and automatically critically wounds. So you hack off the monster's hand, spend 1 survival to treasure this moment, and gain 1 permanent strength. So again, again, we're going to do this once in the sheets. Everything else is going to be done through the overlay. So he spends his only survival, but he gains 1 permanent strength. We'll explain what that means in a little bit. So Alistair has 0 survival, but he has 1 strength. And this has a persistent injury. So the monster has now lost a hand. This might be relevant as we go. So that comes over here and gets placed over here so we can remember it. So we have wounded the monster now. What we do is we draw one of these cards from the AI deck and put it into the wound stack. We don't get to look at what it is. That's how the game works. Now, that out of the way, everybody else can attack normally. So we're going to start off here with Urza. And what we're going to do is we're going to move her 1, 2, 3. We're going to put her behind the monster. So if you notice, the model has now been darkened. That means something. Is it on here? I'm trying to remember. It is not on here. It's in the book. So let's find that page in the rule book. All right. Might not be actually shown in the book. It's talked about, but no picture. So if you are in the 2 spaces directly behind the monster, you are in what's known as its blind spot. So things that this means, if the creature's AI card is targeting somebody who's in their field of view, you are not in their field of view. They cannot see you. More importantly for us right now, this means we have a +1 to hit. So if we look at Urza's grid, we get to see her Founding Stone. So this is what represents the Founding Stone's attack. You have to spend your action. You have a speed of 2, much like the Lion's Claw did. However, we're hitting on a 7+. So this means the monster hits 90% of the time. We hit 30% of the time. However, since we are in the monster's blind spot, we only need a 6. So let's grab our dice and see what we get. I can't kick it in the teeth. I'm in its butt. So we got an 8, and I think that's a 3. It's either a 3 or a 5. Neither one of those is a 6, but we did get 1 hit. So now we have to properly draw a hit location card. We draw the Beast's Tricep. So this has a failure as well as a crit, much like the Strange Hand. But now we have to roll to see what happens. So as we discussed before, the monster has a toughness of 6. This is the number we have to roll in order to deal it a wound. Our Founding Stone has a strength of 1. So whatever we roll on the dice, we're going to add 1 to that total, which means we need to roll a 5 in order to deal a wound to the monster. We rolled a 4. So we failed to wound the monster. So the monster will now perform its basic action, targeting the attacker. Basic action is this. Very similar to Claw. As a matter of fact, it's identical to Claw with the exception of how it targets. So it will move and attack. It does not need to move, but it will turn. Again, speed 2, accuracy 2. A 1 is a miss, so it only rolls 1 hit. And that hit will be done to the head. All right, so as we discussed, yes, this will be going onto YouTube as VODs. So as we discussed, the head does not have a light wound. So if Urza takes this hit to her head, she will be knocked down. What we can do, we have this dodge ability. We can spend 1 survival to dodge 1 attack. We don't want to take this heavy wound, so we will spend that survival and then basically say the monster did not hit us. So let's go ahead and spend her survival here. But that is the only time we get to do it for her this entire fight. But not taking that head wound is very helpful. All right, well, we still have Zach and Lucy that can attack, and both of them are now in the blind spot, so they're going to do just that. So much like Urza, they need to roll 6s to hit. 2 hits for Zachary here, so we get to draw 2 hit locations. Let's take a look at these, because when you draw multiple hit locations, you get to choose the order. So the beast's femur has no reaction. The beast's ribs has no reflex, or I'm sorry, no failure like we saw here, but it does do something on a wound. Realistically, even if we do wound, this isn't going to do anything. We'll describe that when we get there. However, they also have 2 critical things. The white lion gains a -1 toughness token. So we're going to do this one first, because if we do happen to crit, it's going to make it easier for this one to wound. So again, monster is a toughness of 6. Our founding stones have 1 strength, so we need a 5 to wound the beast's ribs. We got a 9. Very close to a crit, but not quite. So again, the beast's ribs. If the attacker has 3+ understanding, see here on the character sheet, they have a track for understanding. These are brand new characters. They don't understand a damn thing. Then we can get a bonus. We don't, so we just ignore everything else on that card. So we can then move that into the discard pile. And again, we have dealt a wound, so we get to put another card in the wound stack. Now we can attempt the beast's femur. Looking for a 5. We got exactly a 5, so that is another wound. Nothing else to talk about on that card. So the only survivor who has not acted this turn is Lucy. So again, hitting on 6s. A 5 and a 6 is 1 hit. So let's take a look at what we have here. All right, the beast's elbow. We really, really need to not fail this. So Lucy, you really need to roll a 5 here. Ho ho! Barely, but she got it. So if she had failed to wound, the full move the monster forward, any survivors passed over suffer grab. So if Lucy had failed, the lion would have grabbed Urza and run away. Urza already spent her survival that she has, so she would have been batted around like a toy under the next turn. Thankfully, that did not happen. So everybody has acted. Now back to the monster. Monster draws another AI card. Chomp, closest threat facing in range. Well, there is only one threat that is in facing, and that is Urza. So we have chosen our target. Speed 1, accuracy 2, damage 1 with an after hit. So if it hits, it will always damage the head location. Or no survivor in our games is ever as picked on as Urza. Even if it's not Urza, whoever is using the Urza model seems to be cursed. And then here we see, if the lion has no jaw, essentially this card does not do any of that stuff. That's where we have this persistent injury here. With the lost hand, we do not have the no jaw, so we will ignore this part. So let's get to attacking. 1 speed, hitting on a 2+. That's a 7, so it hits. It deals 1 damage. guaranteed to the head. This is why it was, whoops, very important that she dodged that attack previously. But now she has taken a heavy wound on her head, which means she is knocked down. But that's the end of the monster's turn. We get to go back to our survivors. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to start off with Zachary, and I'm just going to scoot him around to the side, and then he's going to swing here. This will make sense in a minute once it happens. So Zachary is now hitting on a 7+ because he is no longer in the blind spot. He gets 1/7. Draw our hit location. The Glorious Mane. All right. This has a special keyword, impervious. Impervious hit locations cannot be wounded. A wound, or even a critical wound, will not remove an AI card or defeat the monster. That said, a critical wound will have effects. So it's still worth rolling because we might get that 10. Very close, but not quite. All right, that ends Zachary's turn. We're going to move on to Lucy, who's just going to scoot off to the side and roll her 2 dice, looking for 6s. 2 misses. So now we are back around to Alistair. Well, Alistair doesn't have a weapon anymore. Every survivor, regardless, has access to unarmed combat, known in this game as Fist and Tooth. So Fist and Tooth's profile, 2 speed, hitting on an 8+, which is why I left this spot open. However, when it's attempting to wound, it has no strength. That's kind of the trade-off we took here, because Alistair now has 1 natural strength. But the extra thing here is deadly. +1 luck when you attack with this weapon. This means Alistair will crit on a 9 or a 10. Fist and Tooth is very powerful for that reason. So let's get him into position. So I wish once you, again, this is a new feature. I wish once you actually started the fight, those green squares went away. Maybe there's something to that. I'll have to read up on it. So he is in the blind spot, so he's going to be hitting on 7s. He gets 1 hit, draws his hit location. Okay. Here is the next fun thing about this game. Every creature in its hit location deck has 1 trap. We have drawn that trap. For the White Lion, it is the Clever Ploy. So, trap, reshuffle hit location deck. We'll do that after we finish doing this card. The attacker is caught in the White Lion's ruse and savagely mauled. Not great. Attacker is doomed. What this means is they cannot use any of their survival actions. Not that it matters for Alistair, because he has no survival. Perform basic action, target the attacker. And then some other rules here. So if you had drawn multiple hit locations, so let's say we hit the monster twice, we draw 2 cards, the trap will override that other hit. So it's not like you could say, well, I'll try to damage this and then I'll take the trap. The trap essentially immediately ends your attack. So perform basic action. Speed 2, accuracy 2, damage 1. We're going to turn to target Alistair. A 1, that's good. So we only have 1 hit on Alistair. He will take 1 damage to his body. So that is a light wound on Alistair's body. Not the worst outcome we could have had there. So now, once the trap is done, we take everything here. Oops. Sorry, I gotta remind myself what all the little hotkeys do. Q, that's the button I was looking for. Put all of the cards back into the hit location deck and reshuffle it. So the trap is now back in there waiting for us. So for this turn, Zachary has acted, Lucy has acted, Alistair has acted. Urza is still knocked down. She will get up at the end of the monster's next turn. So since she was knocked down during the monster's previous turn, she loses this entire turn. The good news is she's not a threat, so if something does happen to target a threat, she won't be considered. So at the end of the monster's turn, any survivors that were knocked down at the start of the monster's turn do get back up. So let's see what the monster is doing. Grasp. Closest knocked down survivor in range. Well, there's only one of those, and it's Ursa. All right, move and attack target. Speed 1, accuracy 2+. Let's start there and see what happens. It's a 1! It's a 1! Urza is safe. So what would this have meant? After she took her 1 damage, he would have grabbed her and run away, and she would have been grabbed, which thankfully this card tells us what grab means. Place the target knocked down in front of the monster. Target suffers 1 damage per monster level. I believe, even though in the overlay I have the White Lion as a level 0, it still counts as like 1 monster level for damage purposes. But don't have to worry about that. Urza is the luckiest little girl. So that is the end of the monster's action. As I mentioned, Urza gets to stand up. And now everybody gets to take their turn. So with Alistair and Lucy both already sitting in the blind spot, I think we're not going to do that. So if we remember, sometimes the monster will run forward after you attack it. So this tells us that it's probably a bad idea to leave anybody standing directly in front of the monster. So what we're going to do, we're going to have Urza act first. She will move over to here and swing with her founding stone. So she is hitting on 7s. 2 hits. So this lantern, this is not a crit. We only crit to wound. This is a perfect hit. What does that mean? Literally nothing. There are other effects that will come up later that will synergize with perfect hits, but as it stands now, a perfect hit on its own does not do anything. But we get to draw our 2 hit locations. Whoopsie. So we have the Beast's Back and the Beast's Paw. None of these are very good. So I think we're going to start off with the Beast's Back because this failure action is very bad. I would like to put that off as far as possible. The Beast's Back, if we fail, it's going to run forward. Thankfully, we made sure nobody is in its path. What that will mean is now, if it does run forward, the lion will be out of range for the second attack, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm just terrified. Oh, wait a second. Broken foot, lost hand. Those are not the same thing. So yeah, we're going to start off with the Beast's Back. Let's grab our die. So again, looking for a 5 to wound with a founding stone. And we get a wound. All right, so we take the next. And I just realized I have not been keeping track of the wounds in my overlay. So give me a moment here. I think there is a way count how many cards are in there, but I don't know. However, there's nothing left here, so I can just count how many cards are left here. 1, 2, 3, plus the basic action, so that means the monster is down to 4 wounds. Apologies for that. I'm still getting used to this whole setup I have going on here. All right, so Beast's back. We are done with. Now the Beast's Paw, where poor Urza, my goodness. But all she needs to do is roll that 5 and she'll be fine. She did. So we can put that away. We deal another wound to the monster. So now there are no cards left in the AI deck, so we will flip the remaining cards and then pick them up, give them a shuffle, and then we will draw face down and discard. So we know what attacks it has left, but we don't know which one we just pulled off the top. Hello, Sora. Welcome. So hopefully, with only 3 wounds left, we can just finish it off. So let's go ahead and start with Alistair. Let's get his dice. So again, Alistair is hitting on 7s. No hits. All right. Good job, Alistair. Glad I gave you the extra strength. Lucy, she still has her Founding Stone, so she is hitting on 6s. Now we could just start chucking these Founding Stones. We only need to do 3 more wounds. We have 3 Founding Stones. We can absolutely just end it if we really wanted to. However, these Founding Stones are very powerful. Being able to deal a wound on demand is a great effect that we're going to save for emergencies. I'm not killing any innocents. I'm fighting a ferocious beast. So back to Lucy's turn, looking for 6s to hit. A 1 and a 9, so she does get 1 hit on the beast's, the beast's flank. All right, so this has effects that we'll see if those matter. So she is again wounding on a 5. That is a 7, so that is a wound. All right, so this card has a reaction on a wound. Cats hate this. If you have a cat and have tried to pet its butt, you know sometimes they hate that. The monster is very upset. Attacker gains the priority target token. Thankfully, I have the priority target token over here. So we are going to go place that on Lucy. So what this means is the next time the monster attacks, regardless of what the AI card says, Lucy will be the target. But if Zachary can be an absolute beast and deal 2 wounds, we won't even have to worry about that. So Zachary's going to stand right where he is, swing. He is looking for 7s to hit. Neither one of those was a 7. Good job, Zachary. All right, so we only have 1 AI card left in the deck. Let's see which one it is. It is Chomp. Target, closest threat facing in range. So normally that would be nobody. Closest threat field of view would be either Zachary or Urza. However, Lucy has that priority target token, so she is guaranteed to be the target. So speed 1, accuracy 2. That's a 3. It is a hit. And just like before, it is guaranteed to hit the head, which we do not want. So Lucy will spend her survival to dodge that attack. And now that Lucy has been targeted, the priority target token goes away. All right, we are down to 2 wounds left. We're going to try to finish the monster off this turn. Again, we've learned that we don't want to be standing in front of the monster. So we're going to make sure Lucy and Alistair are our first 2 attackers. Alistair is just going to step to the side, swing with his fist and tooth. So not in the blind spot. He's hitting on 8s right now. He gets a perfect hit. That is a hit. Hit location is the beast's ear. So again, he has +1 natural strength. So he's looking for a 5 to wound and will be critting on a 9 or a 10. He gets the 5. So we can, doing it the right way, move it over here, shuffle the deck. It's only one card. We know what's happening here. So we are down to our last wound. But we still want to play it safe, and we'll have Lucy be our next attacker. She's hitting on 7s. 1 hit. Not the trap. So nothing terribly special here. Just looking for that 5. That was not a 5. Okay. Well, let's give Urza a chance for some revenge. Let her move into the blind spot. See if she can finish off this monster that has been oh so mean to her. In the blind spot, she will hit on 6s. 2 hits. All right, this is pretty good. All right, so we have our options here. Nothing bad on this card, so we're starting with this card. Looking for that 5, because we'd like to avoid this reaction if at all possible. 4. Failed to wound. So now we do have to take our shot at the fleshy gut. Looking for that 5. Urza, you absolute disaster. All right, failure. The white lion swats back, perform basic action, target the attacker. So basic action, 2 speed, 2 accuracy. Urza's getting lucky. She's only taken 1 hit. She is taking 1 damage to her legs. That's fine. That's only a light wound. She will be okay. So, Lucy's gone, Alistair's gone, Urza's gone. All that's left is Zachary. I don't think he can get into the blind spot. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can. You should see a light wound on Urza's legs. If that is not true, please let me know. Oh, that was Alistair, not Urza. My mistake. Thank you for pointing that out. Now you should see a light wound on Urza's legs. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, sorry. Lots to keep track of here. All right, so Zachary was able to navigate his way into the blind spot. So he is looking for 6s to hit. Gets a perfect hit. All right, we got 1 last shot here on the beast's femur. Nothing terribly special. Crit would be nice, but just looking for that 5. Guys, what are we doing here? I don't understand. Okay. So, monster's turn. Monster has no AI cards left. All it has left to do is its basic action. So, targeting closest survivor in field of view. So that could be Alistair, Urza, or Lucy. Zachary is not in field of view, Everybody else is only one space away. So let's take a quick look at everybody's situation. It's definitely not going to be Urza. She has taken a beating. I would prefer if it's not Alistair, because he has the +1 strength. We want to keep him alive. So Lucy is going to be our target. So hitting on 2s. Lucy does not have Urza's luck. She will be taking 2 damage. 1 to the head and 1 to the waist. Oh my. So that is a heavy wound on her head and a light wound on her waist. Heavy wound on her head means she is knocked down. But she survives. I would really like if she was not there, but we can't do anything about that. All right, Alistair, you are in the best position to get this done right now. So Alistair with his fist and tooth in the blind spot is hitting on 7s. 2 hits. Guys, this is literally the easiest fight in the game. Why? So it doesn't matter what the other hit location card is. The trap will override it. So we are going to perform our basic action on Alistair. 2 attacks, hitting on 2s. 2 hits, so he will take 1 damage each to the body and the waist. He still has his waist armor. That brings his body up to a heavy wound, which means he is knocked down. So knocked down isn't as terrible now, since there's no more cards here that are going to potentially cause that to be a problem, but still not optimal. All right, Urza, this is your chance for revenge. You can get into the blind spot, hitting on 6s. That is 1 hit. Also, I have to reshuffle this deck. Beast's tricep. Just roll a 5. That's all you got to do. Just roll a 5. It's literally a 50% chance. It's honestly crazy that we failed this many times in a row, but just roll a 5. Or a 2. A 2 is kind of like a 5. All right. Urza's been getting real lucky. Let's give that to her. Only 1 hit, 1 damage to her waist. That's fine. She actually still has her waist armor. All right. So Alistair is in this spot, which means Zachary can make. Oh. Yeah, Alistair was there. Or no, he wasn't. He was there. Okay. Let's reset that. So Zachary, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, cannot get into the blind spot, so he's just going to stand here and do his best. Hitting on 7s. No. Cool. All right, well, monster gets another turn. Gonna do its basic action again. So, whoops. Closest survivor in field of view. That is either Urza or Zachary. Zachary hasn't been scratched this whole fight, so it's definitely going to be him. Two hits. Not too worried about this one. To the body and to the head. Okay, so Zachary still has a survival, so he's going to dodge the head and then take that light wound to his body. That's okay. That's okay. Lucy and Alistair both get to stand back up. As they entered the monster's turn knocked down, so they get to stand up at the end of the monster's turn. All right, let's think about this. I would like to get Zachary out of the front facing, but I can't do that until somebody else attacks. So Alistair's going to be our best bet to make a spot for Zachary. So let's just move Alistair around, looking for those 7s. That adds up to 7. Cool. And now we're just going to get Zachary out of that front facing. Also looking for 7s. This is the hardest prologue fight I have ever had. My goodness. All right, let's see if Urza can get it done. So she is looking for 6s. 2 hits. The beast's chest and the beast's tail. All right, so we've seen failure actions, we've seen wound actions, we have never seen a reflex action. So a reflex will happen whether you wound or fail. The only way to avoid a reflex is to crit. So realistically, these are exactly the same because we either wound and end the fight or one of these pops off. So let's just look at the critical locations. Random white lion resource, or specifically the lion tail. Let's see if we can get a tail out of this. So we are looking for a 5. Is it just a 5? It shouldn't be this hard to roll a 5. We did it. Oh my goodness. We did it. So now that we have dealt a wound with only the basic action in play, the white lion is defeated. My goodness. That's the game, folks. RNG gonna RNG to the best of its ability. Even the easiest fight in the game can give you trouble. But we survived. All 4 players, or all 4 survivors, made it through. No serious injuries. Nobody lost an arm. While it may have been a little more difficult than we would have liked, honestly, that's the best we can hope for. All right, so we have defeated the monster. What does that mean? Well, let's refer to our book. Survivors are victorious. Collect your rewards. By scavenging the monster's corpse, the survivors earn resources. This is in addition to any resources earned from critical wounds during the showdown. That would have been nice. However, that didn't happen. So we take out the White Lion's resource cards, shuffle them and draw 4, as well as take out the basic resource cards, shuffle them and draw 4. So we get to go into our box of goodies. We get to look for the White Lion. Where is he? There he is. White Lion. And we want the White Lion resources. Get to take that. Bring it out. Give it a nice little shuffle. And we draw 4. So we get white fur, lion testes, the lion claw, and another lion claw. Then we get to go in and look for our basic resources, which are right here, and do the same thing. give it a shuffle, and draw 4. We get a monster hide, a broken lantern, a love juice, and a broken lantern. So big picture, that was actually pretty bad. But we'll do the best we can with what we got. Okay, what else do we do? Place resource face up on the table. If players lost their survivors in the first story, they can create new survivors. Don't have to worry about that. We're fine. Now we get to create our settlement. So we have a bunch of stuff here. All of that is on the back of this board, but constantly flipping this board over is kind of a pain. There's also the shortcut here. So this is what I'm going to be using for reference purposes. But now we have entered the settlement phase. So step 1, set up the board. Sure. Survivors return. Below the settlement name, returning survivors gain +1 survival when the settlement is named. Reward it to any returning survivors. Survivors cannot have more survival than survival limit on the settlement record sheet. Okay, so we get to name our settlement. I don't have a good name, so we're just going to call it Simulator. Again, when the settlement is named for the first time, returning survivals. Pineapple. We don't do that here. This is a pineapple-free zone. Settlement is named for the first time. Returning survivors gain +1 survival. So I'm actually going to do this on the sheets because we are no longer in combat. So anything that we're doing now is permanent for the purposes of record keeping. Lucy already has one. No, she doesn't. That's right, because I wasn't updating the sheets mid-combat. Ignore me. And Zachary is up to 1. Returning survivors heal any existing light and heavy injuries by erasing any filled boxes in their record sheets. So we go out to our next hunt. Everybody's going to be back to full fighting shape. Permanent injuries are not healed. Thankfully, we did not take any of those. Add the names of the returning survivors to the population list on the settlement record sheet. So let's flip this over. And we have our 4 Alistair, Urza, Lucy, and Zachary. And then, of course, male, female, and male. Which brings our population up to 4. Next up, gain endeavors. Whoopsie. Endeavors are the creative energy accumulated from experience. Each returning survivor generates 1 endeavor. We get to go into our box, grab our tokens, and get 1, 2, 3, 4 endeavors. So this is why it's very important to have all of your survivors come back from the fight. Not only do you not lose anybody, but these are very valuable. And we'll get into what those do in a little bit. Update the timeline. The extinguishing of a single lantern in the lantern horde happens regularly. This is how the survivors track time and is called a lantern year. Update the lantern year on the settlement record sheet now by checking off the first lantern year on the timeline. So we come back up here, flip it over. All right, so we check off our first year. And now we have events to perform. So we have settlement event. Normally, settlement events are randomly drawn. For your first lantern year, it is always the first day event. So let's go get our settlement events. We're going to drop that right here. And since we are looking specifically for first day, we'll just grab that one. There it is. All right, so what does first day do? Well, actually, we can just use the tab button to blow that up there. All right. The first day settlement event will help set up your settlement. It is the first event of any new campaign. The survivors wander, drawn to a blooming light in the distance. They find the serene comfort of a towering pile of lanterns and a small collection of scared people. On a deep, instinctual level, they know this area is safe and they make it their home. Roll 1d10 to determine your starting population and record the results on the back of the settlement record sheet. So let's go grab one of our dice. Let's roll that 10. This is an important roll, so we get to be fancy. A 9. That's good. So on a 7+, we gain 10 unnamed survivors plus our returning survivors. Best possible result. So that brings our population up to 14. We'll handle all that offline. You don't need to sit here and see me name a bunch of people. Return to the settlement section of the first story and proceed to returning survivors. The first day settlement event will not be used again during this campaign. Do not include it in your settlement event deck. So we can right click, archive, send it back to the box, and leave the rest of our cards here for future purposes. So, story said to go back to the story event, Returning Survivors. After the timeline is updated, trigger any story events for that year, in this case, Returning Survivors. So, we need to go to our contents and Returning Survivors. There it is. I adore the art in this game, by the way. Like, look at this. All right. Nominate a survivor to utter the first words. I think it's only fair, given how the fight went, that we nominate Urza. The nominated survivor steps forward and gains +1 courage. So let's do that. Let's just grab her sheet, bring it over here because we're going to be using it. She gets +1 courage. Check. They lead the other survivors in learning to speak to one another. They discuss their situation, realizing they must hunt to live. Add the white lion to the quarry list on the settlement record sheet. So let's go in here. It should already honestly be here, but let's double check. Yes, white lion is already good to go. Your settlement gains the language innovation. Search the innovation cards for language and place it face up in your play area and record it on your settlement sheet. So now we get to do what's known as innovations. Here we go. So we just grab this whole deck. We're going to bring it over here with us. I like to leave it here. And we are specifically looking for language. All right, so I'm going to bring this up over here. What does language mean? So our survival limit goes up by 1. So let's make note of that. So now we can have a maximum of 2. All survivors gain the encourage survival action. So I'm not going to check that off on all the sheets. We're just going to keep track. So everybody now has access to encourage. Once per round, if standing, spend 1 survival to call out to a non-deaf survivor. They stand if knocked down. So we saw against the white lion that being knocked down is pretty bad. So this gives us an opportunity to counter that. And we add language consequences to the innovation deck. So we come in here and we look for anything that has the language consequence, which is ammonia, drums, hovel, inner lantern, paint, and symposium. So we take those 6 cards. All right, well, thank you for showing up, Sora. I appreciate it. All right, so on later turns, we're going to be able to draw cards out of that deck to improve our settlement. But we're not done. So build the innovation deck. This is what we just did. Ammonia, drums, hovel, inner lantern, paint, and symposium. Shuffle these 6 cards together to form your settlement's innovation deck. Place it face down in the designated space on the settlement board. We're not using the settlement board. We have a spot for it. Don't worry about it. The innovation deck is persistent. Make sure to preserve the unique combination of cards in your deck between play sessions. Finished with their work, the settlement gathers around its glowing center. Armed with language, the nominated survivor aptly names the glowing center of their home the Lantern Horde. The settlement gains the Lantern Horde settlement location. Go into our fun box. It's in here. Lantern Horde. Okay, gonna keep those over this way. We'll get to what that means in just a moment. Lantern Horde is the source of all innovations and further locations the settlement will develop. The nominated survivor sits in front of the Lantern Horde in awe and gains +1 understanding. So let's give Urza her understanding. Good job. They must skip the next hunt phase as they ponder the meaning of existence. Noted. Check off the skip hunt box on the survivor's record sheet. They cannot be selected as a departing survivor this phase. I'll just remember that. Don't worry about it. So now we get to return to the first story to complete the settlement phase. So let's head back to our contents. And we were in the first story. Flip ahead a little bit. All right. So we've done all this stuff. Update the death count. Check. Nothing to do there. Check milestones. So if we look at our sheet here, there are milestone story events. First child is born. First time death count is updated. Population reaches 15. Settlement has 5 innovations. And population reaches 0. None of those things have happened just yet. And now we get to develop. During this step, the survivors spend their endeavors whenever an endeavor is indicated to build, innovate, craft gear, and join activities. When the settlement starts out, they can spend their endeavors at the Lantern Horde to build new settlement locations. When an endeavor is spent, reduce the total number of endeavors by 1. If you can, spend 3 endeavors to build the Bonesmith, Organ Grinder, and Skinnery settlement locations. We absolutely will do that. So if we look at our Lantern Horde, we can spend an endeavor each to build those extra locations, which we will do. So we get our Skinnery, our Organ Grinder, and our Bonesmith. We'll add those to our little town. So when we look at these, now there's all kinds of stuff we can build. This is where we get into the Monster Hunter element. So back to our Lantern Horde, we can also innovate. We have that 1 endeavor left. We can spend a bone, an organ, and a hide to draw another card from this deck and make our settlement a little stronger. This is something we are going to be doing every year, except this one. And maybe next one, depending on how things go, because those resources are very valuable right now for crafting new stuff. So we get to look at some cool stuff with the simulator now. All right, so we are actually done with this. We don't need this whole pack anymore, so I'm going to send that to its shelf and move the record sheet over here. So we can take this language innovation. Ding. There's actually a setting to turn off that animation. I will do that later. But it helps record keeping, stuff like that. There is also the crafting table. We can link the crafting table with our settlement. It'll help us with crafting. One, this is a new addition to the game. It was only added a few weeks ago, and as of the latest update, it's actually a little buggy. But two, it's just a little awkward to use at this point, so for our purposes, we're just going to pass on the crafting table for just now. But let's grab all of our stuff. And see what we can make. And unfortunately, the answer is not much. So let's start off looking at the skinnery, right? We can make some armor here. Takes 1 hide each. We can also make bandages, costs 1 hide. We do not have drums. We do not have ammonia, so we can't make either of those. Organ grinder. Similarly, can make some other stuff here. We're probably not going to be doing anything with the organ grinder this turn. Oh, we did get the testes. Maybe we'll make something. And we have the bonesmith. So essentially, weapons, armor, accessories. So we're going to start off with our armor. So we got the white fur and the monster hide. So we have 2 hides available to us. I really wish I'd gotten 3. 3 would have made this so much better, but we didn't. All right, so what we learned from that last fight, though, head protection, super valuable. So we're going to make a rawhide headband. With our second one, we know that our body is the most likely location to be hit. So we're going to make the rawhide vest as well. So let's take these over. Let's put these back into their appropriate decks. We have spent 3 of our endeavors building those locations. And we can go and grab some gear. So we were at the skinnery. Oh, goodness. I make that mistake literally every time. So we are going to grab a headband. We're going to grab a vest. I'm going to put those over here to deal with in a minute. All right, that's all the armor we can make. Getting these 3 resources on our first encounter was pretty bad. We have 2 bones available, so we can go to our bonesmith. All right. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to make 1 bone dart. And do I want a blade or an axe? I think I want an axe. So we're going to take the lion claw to make the bone darts, and then we're going to take the claw and the testes to make the axe. And then we'll deposit those away. We don't need the skinnery anymore. Now we need the bonesmith. Can I do it from here? I can. Okay. Oh, no, I can't. Pardon me while I figure out some of our controls. So we're going to make a bone axe and some bone darts. Again, put those over here for later. And then we have 2 broken lanterns, which are pretty much useless to us right now. They're scrap. We can't do anything with scrap. So we're going to just record those. Is that working? There it goes. 1 broken lantern. While I'm thinking of it, let's turn off that animation. Oh, it's actually... So you see I have some of these little things across the table. These are what give us the extra abilities. I think it's here on the pen. Haste. Yes, that'll turn off the animation. Let's grab the other one. Done. Okay. So we can put that back into the deck. So the only thing we have left is our love juice, which we're probably just going to use right now, honestly. I can't think of any reason not to. During the settlement phase, you may archive this to trigger intimacy. Nominated survivors must be able to consume, which we don't have any reason anybody can't consume currently. So let's just do that. Let's go back to our table of contents and find intimacy. So what does intimacy? Nominate 1 consenting male and 1 consenting female survivor to roll on the intimacy table below. We will pick 2 of our as yet unnamed survivors. And let's roll a die to see what happens. A 6. A 6 gets us. A new survivor is brought kicking and screaming into the world. The child's eyes are free of the ink that stained the founders' faces. The settlement gains +1 population. So we are up to 15, which does stuff. First child is born, and population reaches 15. So we had pretty bad... Oh, we don't need 2 language. Interesting. Yeah, so language is always there by default. I forgot about that. So we get to trigger Principal New Life and Principal Society. So we had some bad luck on our resources, but I think we're off to a pretty good start with some of that stuff. Go to our contents. Principal New Life. The group must decide how to raise their young. Choose one, without mercy or with affection. Typically, I choose with affection, which gives us the protect the young principle. What I have learned is protect the young is very good for continuing your population and getting farther into the game. Survival of the fittest, on the other hand, makes it a little harder to get population, but there are things you can do to mitigate that, but it makes it easier to win the game. So for our purposes, we are going to be taking survival of the fittest. Raise our children without mercy. The toys are taken from the child and replaced with a cold stone face shard. Training begins immediately. The settlement gains the new life principle, survival of the fittest. Find and place the card on the settlement board and note it in the settlement record sheet. After adding the card to the settlement, roll 1d10. So let's get that card. And we will actually, I keep my innovations and my principles a little separate. So what does survival of the fittest mean? Survival limit +1. Excellent. That brings us up, oops, that should have been 2 before. I don't know what happened there. When rolling on the intimacy story event, roll twice and pick the lowest result. So as with pretty much any table, rolling higher is better. All current and newborn survivors gain +1 strength and +1 evasion. That's huge. Having extra stats on literally every member of our society is going to be a big help. Once per lifetime, a survivor may re-roll a single roll result. So let's, for example, let's look back at our intimacy here, right? Back to intimacy. So for example, we are now rolling with disadvantage, essentially. Let's say we roll a 1. Basically, the father and the mother both die. But we have the ability to re-roll those results. So it's a bit of a give and a take, but honestly, from everything I've seen, survival of the fittest is pretty much always going to be the best one to take. And we get to roll a d10 on that principal table. So I wish I had not changed the page. Principal Lula. All right, let's roll. We get a 3. The settlement celebrates with a rowdy party filled with tests of strength and triumphant roaring. The parents each gain, +1 permanent strength and +2 insanity. They must skip the next hunt to recover. Think about that for a minute. That was a party. So again, I haven't given them character sheets yet. That's something I will take care of offline. But whoever these parents were will get an extra strength and some brain armor, which is pretty cool. So we are going to have some strong people, which is really going to help us fighting those monsters, especially since we did not get much in the way of weapons on our previous attempt. All right, and we also have our principle for society. This one I'm a little less sure about. There once was a mad woman who spent her days talking to the darkness. One day it spoke back. The group must choose collective toil or accept the darkness. I know what collective toil does, but let's take a look at those. Let's see if we can decide together. So, collective toil. Your settlement leans into the storm. Everyone holds strong. You will triumph. At the start of the settlement phase, gain +1 endeavor for every 10 population. So, right now, for example, if we were to go on a hunt, come back with 4 living survivors, we would get those 4 endeavors plus a 5th. That's a good one. We also have, it's all the way at the beginning. Accept darkness. The settlement no longer fears the darkness. Letting go means your resolve cannot be cracked. Add +2 to all brain trauma rolls. So remember what I said before, if you start taking serious injuries, you have to roll on tables. So what this means is our minimum on brain trauma is going to be a 3. And let's see what that means, right? I think we can go straight to severe injuries, which is helpful. Where's brain trauma? There it is. So if we roll a 1 or a 2, they are immediately dead. So what accept darkness means is it essentially prevents us from ever dying to brain trauma, which I think is worth it. We're going to accept darkness. No other stuff on there. Oops. All right. And then we had another table to roll on. Go to content. And we are going to do society. And for this one, we roll a 6. Nominate a female survivor. If you can't, nominate a male instead. The survivor is heralded as the settlement's leader. Gain the quixotic disorder. It cannot be removed for any reason. In addition, gain the leader and orator of death fighting arts. Do we give this to Urza? Because she's already kind of our leader. I think we do. So let's see what all of that means, right? She gains the quixotic disorder, which let's find our disorders. There they are. Whoops. All right, quixotic. So, you carry the weight of the settlement on your shoulders. Everyone is counting on you to save them, and you will rise to the challenge. If you are insane when you depart, gain +1 survival and +1 strength token. So insane means your insanity is 3 or higher. If that happens, extra survival, extra strength, pretty good. So we're going to give that to Urza on her sheet. Put away that deck. We could have left it out, but oh well. And we also need fighting arts. So she gained, what was it? Leader and orator of death. Oh, did the thing again. So let's grab leader. And order of death should be right over here. So leader. Whenever you encourage a survivor, they gain +1 speed token until the end of the round. So if somebody falls down, Urza asks them to get back up. They get essentially an extra attack. Well, an extra die on their attack. Once per hunt phase, you may inspire another survivor. They use your understanding and courage to resolve a hunt or story event. So Urza already has +1 understanding and +1 courage. If we come across something that needs that, she can give it to somebody else. So that's pretty good. Let's give her that. And Orator of Death. Once per showdown, you may spend your action to have all non-deaf survivors gain +2 insanity. Insanity is just good stuff. When you die, you encourage all survivors with your last words. Hopefully that's not relevant. But we did give it to Urza, so it's probably going to be relevant. All right, so we are done with our fighting arts. So that is all of that done. So we actually got some pretty nice progress with our settlement phase there. So we need to set up for our next hunt. Oh, we still have 1 endeavor left. So what do we have available that we can spend endeavors on? So we could innovate, but we don't have anything there. We could build a leather worker, don't have that. Same thing here. We could build a barber surgeon or a weapon crafter, don't have the materials. We can augury, which basically is an attempt to get more intimacy. don't really think we need that just now. So honestly, the best use of that last endeavor is just to make some stone noses. So we're going to go into our organ grinder. We can't do this correctly this time. Get some stone noses. So on arrival, so this is when we get to the monster fight, we gain +1 survival and +1 insanity. So we will put that over here in our gear pile. So I've got to sort all this out. Although, while we do have a moment, remember I said that the gear grid was going to be important. So let's just use Urza here as an example. We're not taking Urza, but so you see how there are these little color-coded things, right? So there's also this color-coded puzzle piece. So if we have the rawhide headband and we connect two blue bits together, which, look at that, we can, rawhide headband gains an extra ability. Reveal the top 2 AI cards, place them back on top of the deck in any order. Very powerful. Don't need to get into that right just a second. As well as on the vest, if we get the blue puzzle piece and the red puzzle piece, which we can, whoops, how did that happen? Which we can do with our bone axe. So for example, we can set things up like this. Then our rawhide vest gives us an extra +1 evasion. This is such a cool system. I love it. It adds so much more depth and strategy to your builds, which is kind of why we chose these 3 pieces, in addition to the other reasoning I gave. So that's going to give us one really strong character off the bat. So our next step, we've done everything. We've done develop. We just need to prepare our departing survivors, which I won't do right this moment. We don't have a special showdown. Record and archive resources, already done. And the settlement phase, which means the only thing left to do is to start our next hunt. The only thing we have available to hunt right now is the white lion. So at the end of Lantern Year 1, our objective is to go hunt a white lion. That said, I think this is where I'm going to end things for the night. Overall, I would like to be able to do 2 fights within a single night. However, one, had to spend some time explaining things, so that made the fight last a little longer. And this first settlement turn always lasts forever because you got to set everything up. So it's been almost 2 hours just on this one Lantern Year. So next week, we're going to try for the same time, 7:30, and hopefully next week and all of the subsequent weeks, we're going to be able to do 2 years within a single stream. But I have not done this stuff in a long time. I need to train my voice on being able to speak this much over time. So I think this is going to be a good space to end it. So thank you very much, everybody, for showing up. I really appreciate it. I hope I was able to give you an understanding of how this game works, so that when we get to our later... No, I will be fine, thank you. So once we get to our later years, we can just focus on the actual strategy and everything that's going on. So that said, we're going to end things off here. Let's see if we can do anything here. Let's try and send a raid, huh? Let's see what's going on here. Who is playing board games right now? All right, there is somebody playing the Elden Ring board game, which I honestly have never seen before. So let's just go send this over to them. We'll go from something completely horrifying to something slightly less horrifying. But let's give that a shot. Let's send that over. So again, thank you everybody very much for joining us here, or for joining me here. See you again in the next upcoming weeks, and I am just so excited to be able to share this game with people. I adore this game. I own it in digital. I will own it I own a lot of this in plastic. I've been spending many hours working on those models. Yes, streams will be going up on YouTube. I still kind of need to set that side of it up. But starting next week, there will be chat commands and all kinds of fun stuff for those. However, if you just look literally anywhere on the internet for Simodian, you will find me. Twitch, Blue Sky, YouTube, Discord. I'm the same name everywhere. I'm the only one of me. So, again, thank you for joining me on this journey. Hope to see everybody again next week, where we get to continue our fun adventures. Thank you very much.